So I made a couple of videos about Eckhart Tolle. One of them was entitled Eckhart Tolle Fails the Reality Test, a very provocative title. And for the first time ever, I got more dislikes than likes because the videos seemed to get the attention of Eckhart Tolle's supporters, which is fine. The view count went much higher than a video of mine normally does, and I got into a lot of interesting conversations as a result of that. But I don't think I really changed anybody's mind on anything, and it didn't really change my mind. And I do think what's going on here is people simply striving for a spiritual ideal that doesn't reflect reality. And in order to prop that ideal up, they attempt to evade reality. And the same thing happened, in Christianity. If I think about the way Christians argue about things, like you have a loving God apparently who is all powerful, so he can do anything, and yet you have the most horrendous things happening to children on the planet. So God apparently is choosing not to act. He is totally inactive. So Christians get around this by blaming man. They say all the terrible things are man's fault, but it's a crafty argument because it ignores the sovereignty of God in that context by making man entirely responsible, as if let's just pretend for a while that God's not in control. And then when man does something really great, something that improves the lives of people on the planet, we have to first thank God for that. Not man, even though it was man's accomplishment. So it doesn't make any sense. But Christians will do this sort of mental game with themselves where they'll just ignore certain things and then not ignore them in other contexts. It's just about evading reality. God is either responsible in all circumstances, or he's simply not there and therefore not responsible at all, and man is responsible. You can't have it both ways. But they will try. So in esoteric spirituality, where people talk about the ground of being and consciousness and non-duality and all that stuff, unfortunately the same attempt to evade reality seems to occur. So I'm going to quote a simple example here. It could be one of 1,000 things I could say, but this is just the one that jumped into my head. And I think this just demolishes the argument if you're willing to look squarely at it and not evade it, right? So the claim is that you can transcend suffering. The claim is that you won't have to experience any unpleasant emotions ever again, that there's a state of consciousness that you can just live by and you can hold on to, and it's bliss forever, right? So think of this. Let's say you're a parent and you have a daughter who's 18 years old. She comes home one day and she announces, "Mom, Dad, I'm getting married." And you ask, who are you getting married to? And she says the person's name. Now, this person happens to be a well-known local drug dealer and pimp. Someone who has been very skilled at evading prosecution, but everybody knows who he is and what he's like, and he's a dangerous character and not the sort of person you want your daughter getting married to. But she's in love and she's determined to get married to this guy. So imagine you're stuck in that situation. Are you seriously telling me that you don't feel any anxiety about that? If you don't feel any anxiety about that genuinely, I would be worried about you, because it would mean that you don't care, that you really don't care at all about what happens to her. So that kind of makes you subhuman. In what other way could you not feel anxiety? Except to say that her life doesn't matter, what happens to her doesn't matter, or to indulge in some weird ideal that somehow she'll be protected from harm. But come on, that's not true. Let's not jump back into monotheism here. Anything can happen to anybody. It's kind of funny that somebody was arguing with me against this in a comment, and what did I say? I said something like how, you could be tortured, and what are you going to do? But you're saying you can be at peace forever, but you could be tortured tomorrow. You don't know. And this person tried to argue with me that, well, if you're identified with the ground of being, then you're unlikely to attract that sort of energy into your life. And I thought, oh, you're one of those. Law of attraction. No. People like that really need to streamline their spirituality down a little to try to figure out what's actually true, what's actually something you can hold on to, and take away all that flimsy nonsense out of it. But there you have it. That's my argument. Put yourself in the shoes of a parent faced with that situation, because you know that anything can happen to you over the course of your life. You don't know what it's going to be. So how can you really say, I have transcended suffering? Now, it could be that you're one of these people who doesn't wish to have any attachments, so you avoid people. You want to just sit and meditate, stare at a wall, avoid people, avoid anything that has the potential of upsetting your emotional state. In other words, you want to opt out of life. You want to opt out of vital living. Does any other animal do that? No. So it's kind of mad. It's almost like, and I don't think this is an overstatement, it's almost like a kind of low quality way to commit suicide. Because what you're really saying is, I don't want to live. I want to opt out of the human experience. So I'm going to opt out of it as much as I can by refusing to get attached to anything. Refusing to fully play the human game. And the ego, the so-called ego, is turned into an enemy. It's not an enemy. It's not a real thing for a start. It's not an entity sitting inside you. So you can't villainize it as some kind of opponent, right? Because it isn't real. All you can do is come to an awareness of what the ego isn't. But it's still, you can still use that word intelligently to refer to consciousness in an individuated sense, staring out of a pair of eyes, tasked with the protection of a body, the maintenance of relationships that are localized to it, and all the rest of it. You see, there's nothing wrong with consciousness just as it is. There's no cosmic state of consciousness that transcends the ego, because there's no ego. Sometimes I think our vocabulary makes things especially difficult when it doesn't really need to be difficult. Yeah. So, I want to play the human game. I want to get fully involved. And in the back of my mind, it always sits with me that I understand that I'm the ground of being. And that really has a powerful effect upon, my views on mortality. And it allows me to hold life lighter as I go through it, because I realize that the fact that nothing lasts isn't really something to get too sad about, because it's just all this constant flux of the universe experiencing itself in all these manifold forms, and it's all you, it's all the ground of being. But while the ground of being is focused into this individuated consciousness, you got to play the game by the game's rules. Otherwise, it's no fun. So, does it really make sense understanding that you are the ground of being, and the ground of being goes shoo, out of here, and you look around you and you go, I don't want to be here. I want to opt out because there's suffering everywhere. I don't want to suffer. I want to opt out of the human experience. But didn't the ground of being put itself in the human experience? So why do you want to opt out? Why do you want to commit low quality suicide? Yeah. It really does seem to me that they're in non-duality. in the field of non-duality and supporters of non-duality, there's two approaches to it. There's the opt into life people and the opt out of life people. And if you're an opt out of life person, I would ask you to investigate that, because I think you're going about it all wrong. And there might be a point in your life where you look at it and say, oh my goodness, what have I done for the last 10 years? I could have had so much living and I've just been doing nothing with it. That's why I call it low quality suicide. You don't want to be here to do anything. So you don't want to actually commit suicide, because that takes, normally people don't commit suicide unless their emotional trauma is so significant that they can really go against the natural survival impulse of the body mind. So you're not in that kind of a state of mind. You just don't like the fact that you have to suffer. So you want to flatten out the emotional experience and just have a kind of... There's an expression somebody came up with when they were commenting on a video where I talked about Gary Weber. And this person called Gary Weber a piece of dead wood. And I think that's a perfect expression. You want to become a piece of dead wood, not existing for any reason, not wishing to do anything, not wanting to put any vitality into your life. It's a total wrong approach to non-duality. And the problem is you can't actually live it. You can't really grasp this thing called bliss or an end to suffering. You can't get there because real life is going to intrude. Reality is going to intrude on your comfortable little experience. You just don't know what's going to happen. It's all well and good to have a comfortable apartment, or to not have to work, maybe, if you're in that kind of a situation, or to spend time at a retreat. But the world is bigger than these little confined places, and it can intrude upon you at any time. I mean, it's perfectly possible that I could lie in my bed tonight in this comfortable big house and somebody could break in and kill me in my sleep. Not likely, but totally allowed in terms of how this wild animal park called the world actually works. Totally allowed. And it's allowed for you too, regardless of whatever you believe about the law of attraction and everything else. I have no idea what my life holds in store. And it was actually a while, going back to whenever I first embraced non-duality, it was a while before I got monotheism really out of my system, because my original approach to non-duality I still had these lingering views that there was a kind of special consciousness presiding over my life, guiding it. No. Anything can happen to me. And it's not comfortable to contemplate that, to know that, but it's true. Anything can happen to me. So I'm not chasing an end to suffering. I prefer to live.